So as usual, please feel most welcome to ask whatever questions you have. There's a hand up already at the back there.
Ajahn Amaro, in your last Dhamma talk, you talked about balancing the 7 enlightenment factors. And in particular, there's one thing you talked about, how it's not I who is balancing the factors, but it's rather the sati that is making the other factors arise. And I'm playing with that, and I notice how so the usual way of meditation is how I say, oh, I'm going to pay attention to sound, I'm going to pay attention to breath, I'm going to do metta. There's a controller. So I'm trying to let go of that controller and just kind of make a wish. I'm like, may there be more tranquility. And somehow it worked. Like a few moments later, the tranquility factor arises. so that's quite amazing. And I'm confused also about this. It's like if there's no controller that is meditating, then what makes the next moment connect to the previous moment? How does this work? How does that factor arise without somebody making it happen?
Well, I wouldn't overthink it, but in a way, it's the quality of awareness is the connector. That because when that awareness, that satipanya is very so clear and unobstructed, then it has an ever-present quality, and so that it's again, without overthinking it too much, just noticing how it's like if you're riding a bicycle and you notice that you're balancing, then the thought, how am I staying balanced? The thought doesn't really apply. It's like a whole body process is balancing on the bicycle as the bicycle moves. And so the whole system is sort of passing through space and time. The laws of cause and effect are operating, but the mind, which knows the movement of the bicycle and those changes affecting each other, that quality of knowing is ever present. So again, it's if we create too many ideas about it, then we get lost in the ideas. But to notice the actuality of how the mind, which is aware. This is why, as I was saying earlier today in the meditation guidance, that I think it was today, how the Buddha refuge is not just Gautama Buddha who taught 2,500 years ago, but that quality of awareness, of vijayadhatu, that's a refuge. It's the safe place. It's the ground of knowing that's ever present. That's why it's a refuge. That's why it's a safe place. And so that I hesitate to talk too much about it and say, well, I thought everything's impermanent. So is that awareness permanent or impermanent? So I feel it's much more helpful, rather than creating ideas about that, to see how it works in practice, moment by moment, and to get to know that quality of continuity of presence, or the timeless quality of presence, of that awareness, and that some ajahns speak about it, like Ajahn Amaro says, awareness doesn't begin and end. Awareness is timeless, and often when he says things like that, the Abhidhamma scholars jump in and say, "That's not correct, Ajahn." But because as often the case that the forest tradition teachers are speaking from experience rather than from analytical theory of say Abhidhamma or academic scholarship. And so that I feel if we use our own experience, how this mind functions, and seeing how it works, oh, look at that, this quality of awareness, it is ever present. So in a way, it's not sort of connecting this moment with another moment. It's always in exactly this moment. It's akaliko, timeless. Again, don't overthink it, but get a feeling for that as a like a direct experience. Like if you're riding a bicycle and you think about riding the bicycle, ooh, then you fall off. But once you've learned how to ride a bike, your body knows what to do and it can balance and move. So it's not putting the living reality first and then the conceptual structures at the edges to describe something of that. That makes sense?
Yeah, I understand. You're saying just ride the bicycle and don't think too much about it.
Exactly. The point is that conceptual maps can be useful, but the one very powerful and brief teaching that the Buddha gave is the Pali is yena himanyanti tatutang hoti anyatati. Whatever you conceive it to be, the truth is always other than that. So no concept can match the reality. So every concept is a best guess or an approximation. It can't be more than that. And he kind of established that principle very early on. And that's when we're trying to pin down reality in terms of concepts, have that as a sort of banner headline. Whatever you conceive it to be, the truth is always other than that. Not just because you haven't got the right answer. It's because concepts don't have enough dimensions to match the reality. It's like trying to drink three-dimensional water out of a drawing of a cup. The drawing's only got 2 dimensions, but the water's got 3 dimensions. So concepts are like that.
Thank you.
Did you add anything to that?
I want to add a little bit on the word you used when you said it to allow and to not to control. Because from my understanding, my experiences, I learned in my meditation, I learned to surrender to whatever arises in my mind, because I see from my own experience that it's not the thing that we can really control. When we practice the meditation, it's not like that we are the one who can control everything at will. It's more on observing. The more you try to control it, the more suffering that you can create it in your meditation session. So probably the idea that you said that allowed it to happen, to arise, and then observe it, aware of it, and learn something from it, will be another approach that will be you benefit from your practice.
May I have a question in Thai?
Please, yes.
ตามพระสูตรเนี่ยอุปทานขันธ์5คือตัวทุกข์ทีนี้การยึดมั่นในรูปในเวทนาสัญญาสังขารโยมพอเข้าใจอยู่บ้างแต่การยึดมั่นในวิญญาณยังไม่ค่อยมั่นใจว่ามันคืออะไรค่ะแล้วก็วิญญาณอันนี้เนี่ยมันเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของที่เราเรียกว่าจิตด้วยหรือเปล่าคะ
Yeah, I do, but you can answer. Okay, so the question in English was speaking about grasping, clinging to the 5 khandhas, and she was saying how it can understand or get a sense for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara, but what was grasping at Vijnana? How does that work, or what's the dynamic of that? Chame? Yeah. So Vijnana in the Thai language, it's kind of it's gathered an extra meaning of a ghost, that like Glorpi, kind of being afraid of ghosts. So Vijnana has nothing to do with ghosts, but it's like, you know, the same thing happens in English. A word sort of gets a life of its own, and it sort of leaves its origins and becomes used to something else altogether. So in the 5 khandhas, the way that I feel it's most helpful to understand is that because they're not completely separate from each other. And in one of the dialogues in the Prasut, in the suttas, there's a dialogue between, I think it's just the Arahant nun, Dhammadina, and her former husband. And the question is, feeling, perception, and consciousness, are they conjoined or are they disjoined? Are they separate or are they connected? And then the nun Dhammadina says they're conjoined, not disjoined, because that which you feel, you perceive, that which you perceive, you cognize. So you can't entirely divide them out from each other. So like with water, you can say this water has temperature, it has a taste, it has an appearance, it has a viscosity. You can't take the taste out and leave the color and the viscosity and the temperature. You can't take the temperature out and leave the others. But the temperature is not the same as the viscosity or the taste. Temperature is one thing, taste is another, but they are both attributes of the same substance. So you can't. They are in some ways separate, but also they are in some ways connected. So it's helpful to understand the 5 khandhas are a kind of rough grouping. It's like a convenient way of slicing the pizza or the cake. You know, it's like, okay, let's slice the pizza into 5 pieces. Yeah, and so it's a rough division. And the word khandha just means like a lump or a heap or a group. It's a very ordinary household term that the Buddha used, like your shoulder is a khandha. You know, a pile of cushions would be a khandha. It's just a heap or a lump, a group. So with respect to Vijnana, you can say that, or the way I like to talk about Vijnana is, it's like the sense consciousness is it's the building blocks of all experience. So perception, seeing is eye consciousness, Chakku Vijnana. So, and in terms of neuroscience, it's the light hitting the cells in the back of your eye, sending little electrical impulses down your optic nerve into your brain to the visual cortex, where those little electrical impulses get put together as red, or green, or white, or brown, and so the individual impulses, the registering of those electrical impulses in the visual cortex, that would be like one unit of Vijnana, the Chakku Vijnana, eye consciousness. And so all experience, whether it's a thought, a sound, an emotion, a visual form, all of the 5 khandhas, an emotion, a sensation, the perceptions of the body, they are all just these little increments, little the building blocks of experience that are put together and say, this is the perception of my body, or the feelings of the body, or this is a red and black mat. And so in a way, even though the English word consciousness implies a quality of subjectivity, so I am conscious, I know, I am aware, I feel in the 5 khandhas, it's most helpful to understand is the Vijnana in the five khandhas is mostly referring to the object, is how the objects are built up. A very good example, we've got these cameras and microphones. So these, a microphone or a camera, they take the sound and they make the sound, or they take the light and they make it into individual spots, individual sparks, and send them down the wires, and then they get registered as sound on the computer. The camera takes the light through the lens and makes individual pixels. And then when we see a digital photograph, all the pixels kind of come together. So we see, oh, it's a person, or it's a carpet, or it's a building. So in that respect, vijnana is like the pixels of experience, whether it's a sensation or a sound or a taste or a memory or an emotion. It's what those are built up from. So that's so grasping the vijnana, attaching to vijnana, it's not as obvious as the others, but it's in a way making any kind of sensation or thought or perception, the mind that says this is real, this is this isn't an empty blip appearing in awareness, but this is a real thing. So it's clinging to consciousness is, in a sense, making what is a pattern of experience apparently solid. This isn't just a thought. It's true. This is a nice red. This is a good red color. Yeah, this is a microphone. So it's the way the mind gives a false solidity to those patterns of experience. So that and that's one way of understanding it. It's the way that the mind, it says the world is real, the external world or the internal world, that these are my feelings and they're real. This is my thoughts, my memories, my sensation, it's real. And then insight, the satipanya, is when that's applied, then it's like, well, that's the appearance, but it is just a perception that arises and passes away. The world is empty. It is sunya. It's not, there's nothing solid, there's no thing solid there. So that is the non-attachment to consciousness is related to knowing emptiness, the empty nature of all experience. เข้าใจไหมท่านจะอธิบายภาษาไทยด้วยดีไหม
คืออย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์อธิบายว่าขันธ์ห้าเนี่ยมันทำงานร่วมกันอย่างซับซ้อนที่จริงอาตมาว่าถ้าจะทำให้ความเข้าใจง่ายขึ้นแต่ไม่ได้หมายความว่าตัวขันธ์ห้ามันง่ายนะคือขันธ์ห้ามันคือตัวเรานั่นเองแยกง่ายๆก็เป็นรูปกับนามใช่ไหมกายเนี่ยมันค่อนข้างจะเห็นได้ชัดที่เหลือมันก็เป็นส่วนของการทำงานในส่วนที่เป็นนามธรรมทั้งหมดตัววิญญาณเนี่ยมันทำหน้าที่เนื่องจากเป็นตัวรู้มันก็เลยเหมือนเป็นตัววิ่งเหมือนอย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์บอกว่าเวลาตาทำงานมันก็มีจักษุวิญญาณเวลาหูทำงานมันก็มีโสตวิญญาณมีวิญญาณประสาทสัมผัสอย่างเช่นโยมนั่งอยู่ตอนนี้ไอตัวที่ก็เห็นด้วยมันจะยากในการจับเพราะว่าขณะฟังเสียงวิญญาณที่ฟังเสียงก็ทำงานใช่ไหมแต่ถ้าสมมติโยมนั่งแล้วมันมีเมื่อยมันก็ไปทำงานตรงนี้สัมผัสตรงนี้อย่างแอร์ความเย็นเราก็รู้สึกคือมันทำหน้าที่เป็นตัววิ่งที่จะไปรู้คือการประมวลผลภาพอย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์อธิบายบอกว่าอย่างยกตัวอย่างที่ชัดเจนอย่างเช่นว่ากล้องถ่ายรูปแต่ว่ากล้องถ่ายรูปอาจจะชัดเจนกว่าเสียงเนาะอย่างไมโครโฟนอย่างกล้องถ่ายรูปมันทำงานยังไงคือมันรับเอาแสงใช่ไหมแล้วเข้าไปประมวลนะแล้วก็ออกมากลายเป็นภาพแต่ที่จริงอันนี้มันไม่มีอะไรมันก็คือรับไปไอ้ตัวที่ประมวลแล้วเป็นภาพ นั่นแหละคือการทำงานคือการทำงานเวลาเราเห็นอะไรปุ๊บสมมุติว่าเราเห็นข้างหน้าแล้วเราก็รู้ทันทีเลยว่านี่คือดอกไม้เนี่ยวิญญาณมันทำงานเยอะมากเลยนะคือมันไม่ใช่แบบปุ๊บแล้วก็อันนี้ได้มันก็อาจจะขึ้นไปก่อนนี่เห็นแล้วสีอะไรการจะรู้ว่าสีอะไรเนี่ยคือตัวสัญญาใช่ไหม perception เราต้องรู้มาก่อนแล้วว่าอันนี้เรียกว่าสีขาวมันไม่มาทันทีว่าอันนี้สีขาวแล้วชื่อของมันคืออะไรแล้วมันก็มาพร้อมกันด้วยว่าสวยไม่สวยชอบไม่ชอบมันทำงานพร้อมกันไปเลยนะเพราะอย่างที่โยมถามก็อาตมาว่ามันก็ส่วนหนึ่งที่ว่ามันจะแยกยากว่าเพราะว่าจริงๆมันก็ไม่ได้แยกกันขนาดนั้นมันทำงานร่วมกันอย่างสลับซับซ้อนเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยถ้าจะบอกว่าไปยึดมั่นถือมั่นมีอุปทานในขันธ์ทั้งห้าคือเวลามันมีเวทนามันก็ต้องมีวิญญาณไปรับรู้เวทนาอยู่แล้วมันก็เกาะกันไปคือมันไม่ได้แยกออกมาเป็นส่วนๆต่างหากอย่างชัดเจนหรือสังขารอย่างเงี้ยคือการปรุงแต่งใช่ไหมของความคิดอย่างเงี้ยมันก็ต้องมีตัวที่จะไปรู้ว่าเรากำลังคิดเรื่องอะไรแล้วก็ปรุงแต่งอะไรนะอย่างยกตัวอย่างง่ายๆว่าอาตมาชอบยกตัวอย่างเรื่องเวลาคิดเรื่องโกรธเนี่ยใช่ไหมเวลาคิดเรื่องโกรธนี่เราปรุงแต่งได้เป็นครึ่งชั่วโมงเลยแล้วขณะนั้นน่ะมันไม่ได้แค่สังขารทำงานวิญญาณมันก็ทำงานไปพร้อมๆกันไปรับรู้แล้วก็ไปปรุงแต่งไปตีความไปให้ชื่อไปให้ความหมายอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแล้วมันกลายเป็นตัวตนที่แล้วอย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์บอกว่ามันดูเหมือนจริงจังมันดูเหมือนโซลิดแต่เข้าจริงมันก็คือเหมือนกับภาพในกล้องถ่ายรูปที่มันเป็นพิกเซลต่างๆแค่นั้นเองแล้วพอมันลงไปหรือว่าเวลามันพิมพ์ออกมาเป็นภาพใช่ไหมความเป็นจริงมันคืออะไรมันก็คือจุดสีต่างๆแต่ทำไมเราบอกว่านี่เป็นภาพของโยมวิบูลย์เนี่ยเราก็รู้ชื่อทันทีเลยเห็นปั๊บหรือว่าถ้าภาพท่านอาจารย์บอกอันนี้ท่านอาจารย์อมโรเนี่ยคือแต่ในกระดาษมันคืออะไรคือตาของเราไปเห็นใช่ไหมแล้วเราก็ประมวลออกมาแล้วก็ชื่อของท่านอาจารย์อมโรก็มาอันนั้นไปเลยอย่างเงี้ยเพราะตัวการยึดมั่นถือมั่นในตัววิญญาณเนี่ยแต่มาว่ามันก็ไปเกาะกดทุกตัวที่เป็นนามขันธ์หรือแม้กระทั่งรูปขันธ์เองก็ต้องมีวิญญาณไปรับรู้เพราะถ้าไม่มีวิญญาณไปรับรู้เราก็กายเราอยู่ที่ไหนใช่ไหมอย่างเราหลับตาเนี่ยกายอยู่ที่ไหนเราก็ไม่มีโสตจักษุวิญญาณใช่เพราะจับหลับตาปุ๊บเนี่ยตัวเรามันก็เหมือนหายไปชั่วคราวมันไม่มีอยู่อย่างเงี้ยคือตัววิญญาณมันวิ่ง
So it's also along with that the empty nature of the object. Often when the quality of sunyata, emptiness, is defined in the suttas, it's defined as empty of self and what belongs to a self. So it's very closely connected to anatta, so that letting go also the attachment to consciousness, the vinyana upadana kanda, it's the I experience. I think. I see that color. The I see again seems solid and real, and so that the attachment to consciousness is not just on the object side, but also on the subject. I'm experiencing this. Yeah, I know I am speaking. I hear the sound of my voice. That again, it's a lack of insight into the reality. So it's the object is empty and the subject is empty. So that another good example with respect to attachment to the khandhas is, say, the experience of being colorblind. Kajamai? So one of the monks at Abhayagiri Monastery, actually the very first monk, Ajahn Krunadhammo, is completely red-green colorblind. So he would see the green of these leaves and the red of the mat as virtually the same. They're not different. And so we had many interesting discussions and talking about the flowers on the shrine. He was very good at arranging flowers, but he had to say, do these colors go together? Because he couldn't tell the reds and the greens, that they look the same. And so, but when you're not colorblind, you say, no, that is green and this is red. But to a colorblind person, it's like, no, it's not. And he said, no, my experience is reality. Your experience is a distortion. So, really? Is that so? So that is a good example of attachment to consciousness. No, it's green and this is red. It's red, it's different. But to a colorblind person, it's like, well, so I asked him, how did you learn to drive? You're a very good driver. How did you learn to distinguish the traffic lights? And he said, green's on top, red's underneath. But the color looks the same.
It's also cultural condition with consciousness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cultural condition.
Yes, and it's culturally conditioned also with your occupation. Like if you're a chef, then you're very acutely aware of what goes into the food and what it tastes like. If I think, what do they do here? What's that ingredient? And I know. If you're not a chef, you're not a cook. It's like, oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm full now. Okay. You don't notice it, so that what the mind gives value to varies a lot with our conditioning and our culture. So, any other questions, please? Yes.
ครับนมัสการพระอาจารย์ครับ I have question about walking meditation. Could we walk for a long distance instead of 10 to 20 minutes? That's my first question.
What was that?
Could we walk for a long distance, such as walk around the resort instead of a short distance for 10 or 20 minutes? That is the first one. The second one is that after this course, how should we plan for daily practice for both sitting and walking meditation? Okay, thank you.
Well, the walking meditation, the style that we've been using here, this is the classic format that goes back to the time of the Lord Buddha, and is used within the forest tradition in Thailand, but many other places in Sri Lanka, Myanmar as well. And so as individuals, we can kind of do whatever we like, but the purpose of having a path that's about 20 paces long, it's that distance is, say, chosen as a way of keeping things simple, and so that you have a fairly defined area. You can know that the path is fairly smooth under your feet. You don't have to be avoiding different objects. If your path was 100 meters or 500 meters or a mile long, then all kinds of things you're seeing along the way is a lot of variety. So having a short path of just 20 meters, it means there's a bit of variety, there's some change, but it's basically quite simple. And so that if it's too short, then you take one step, two steps, turn around, then that's a bit frustrating and not fluid enough. But the length of the path at about 20 paces, 25 paces is so that it's something like the ordinary everyday activity of walking, but it's also extremely simple. So it's a way, and you're asking about daily life practice, it's a way of cultivating mindfulness and collectedness, sati and samadhi, in a more active and dynamic environment. So you've got changes of things around you, the body is moving. It's less easy to concentrate, but it's an exercise in helping you to maintain mindfulness while there's a bigger range of perceptions going on. So that's the purpose of that length of path. It's for simplicity, and but also to be something like the natural act of walking, going from one place to another. I have known monks who have a lot of restlessness. One in particular, when he was living in Canada at a small hermitage, his Jongrom path was 5 miles long. So he was literally 5 miles, all the way to this kind of the edge of the mountain and then back. And then, so it took a long time to get from one end of the path to the other, but he was a very restless person. And so that was his own choice. I wouldn't recommend that myself. But it's I would say, as I've been saying to a few people, it's up to us to experiment and find out what works for us. One rains retreat, when Ajahn Jiew was a young monk, there was a huge amount of rain. It was heavy rain every day, and he only had a very small kuti. So his Jongrom path was like 1.5 steps inside his kuti. Like 1 step, half a step, turn around, 1 step, half a step. That's all he could manage, because outside it was just everything would get soaked. So he had to use a very, very limited space. So that's what I would recommend in terms of this retreat. Just using that span of about 20 paces is ideal for the purpose. And then in terms of the second question, maybe you have anything to say about Jongrom first?
คืออย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์อธิบายอยู่แล้วว่าพอเรากำหนดเส้นทางที่มันไม่ยาวเกินไปเนี่ยสภาพแวดล้อมมันก็คงที่มันไม่มีอะไรกระตุ้นต่อสายตามากเพราะว่าถ้าพอมันยาวมากเนี่ยมันจะมีสิ่งต่างๆที่มันหลากหลายมากขึ้นแล้วตาของเรามันคือความท้าทายของการเดินจงกรมโยมก็คงทราบอยู่แล้วว่ามันสงบได้ยากกว่าการนั่งแน่ๆเพราะว่าเราลืมตาพอเราเห็นอะไรเนี่ยการกระตุ้นที่จะทำให้เกิดการปรุงแต่งมันง่ายมากเพราะฉะนั้นการที่กำหนดสั้นเนี่ยจังหวะมันมีตัวการกำหนดด้วยที่จริงจงกระเนี่ยภาษาบาลีก็แปลว่ากลับไปกลับมานะแล้วพอเวลาที่เราเดินแล้วมันต้องกลับเนี่ยนะตรงจุดกลับเนี่ยมันจะเป็นตัวเหมือนกับตัวเช็คอย่างดีว่าเรากำลังคิดอะไรเราอาศัยตัวนี้เป็นการตัวเช็คคือถ้าเราเดินยาวๆเนี่ยบางทีเราเผลอคิดมันสามารถจะไปได้นะเป็นกิโลอย่างนี้ก็ได้นะคิดไปเรื่อยๆโดยที่ไม่รู้ตัวว่าเรากำลังคิดแต่ถ้าสมมติว่าเดินช่วงสั้นไม่ยาวมากเนี่ยพอตอนจะกลับตัวเนี่ยคือโอกาสในการที่เราจะกำหนดว่าเราเผลอคิดหรือยังถ้าเผลอเราจะได้กลับมาใช่ไหมแล้วบางทีเนี่ยถึงแม้ว่ามันจะหัวท้ายจะกลับกำหนดก็ยังเผลอตรงกลางอยู่ดีครูบาอาจารย์ก็เลยบอกว่าต้องกำหนดตรงกลางเพิ่มเข้าอีกหน่อยนึงนะหรือถ้ายังหลุดอีกก็กำหนดเป็นระยะนะอันนี้ก็ไม่จำกัดมันก็ขึ้นอยู่กับอย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์บอกว่าแต่ละคนก็ลองดูว่าอันไหนจะเหมาะกับตัวเองคือถ้าโดยปกติถ้าเดินช้าก็ทางเดินจงกรมก็อาจจะสั้นได้หน่อยแต่ถ้าเดินเร็วหรือว่าเดินปกติก็เส้นทางเดินจงกรมก็จะยาวหน่อยอย่างหลวงตามหาบัวท่านเดินค่อนข้างไวนั้นเส้นเดินจงกรมของท่านก็ประมาณ49ได้มั้งนะถ้าดูแล้วมีบางที่ที่มีข้อจำกัดอย่างเช่นในรีทรีตบางแห่งที่อาจจะต้องเดินอย่างเช่นฝนตกเนี่ยบางทีก็เดินกันในห้องนะพอเดินกันในห้องบางทีก็เดินเป็นวงคล้ายๆกับเดินเวียนเทียนถ้ากรณีอย่างนั้นก็ครูบาอาจารย์ก็จะสอนว่าให้กำหนดให้มันเป็นช่วงๆนะเพื่อให้มีระยะในการกำหนดมากขึ้นนะแล้วก็เห็นเหมือนกับที่ท่านอาจารย์ว่าการเดินจงกรมเนี่ยคือตัวที่นำไปสู่การ ประยุกต์ใช้ในชีวิตประจำวันได้มากกว่าการนั่งเพราะว่าในชีวิตประจำวันของเราส่วนใหญ่เนี่ยเรามักจะเคลื่อนไหวถ้าเราเคยชินเฉพาะกับการเจริญสติในอิริยาบถที่นิ่งแล้วนั่งอย่างเงี้ยแล้วในชีวิตประจำวันเรารู้สึกว่าหาความสงบไม่เจอเพราะว่ามันจะต้องมีกิจกรรมมีการเคลื่อนไหวในการเดินจงกรมเนี่ยเราฝึกที่จะมีสติกับการเคลื่อนไหวของกายแล้วพอเราจับได้ว่าขณะเดินเรายังสามารถมีสติได้มันก็สามารถไปปรับใช้ได้ว่าอย่างเช่นว่าในชีวิตประจำวันเนี่ยเราไปกวาดอย่างเงี้ยมันก็มีสติอยู่กับการกวาดล้างจานนะหรือเดินจากที่หนึ่งไปอีกที่หนึ่งเดินขึ้นบันไดอะไรหรือแม้กระทั่งไปเดินในสวนก็สามารถที่จะมีองค์ประกอบของการที่มีสติรู้ตัวได้
Your second question was about sitting and walking meditation in your daily life practice. Well, it kind of depends on your living situation, how big your home is, how much space you have around, who you're living with, how much time is taken up with your work life, all the many different factors. And so the what's going to be harmonious with the people that you live with in terms of the family. So there's you can't really generalize. It's going to vary from one person, one living situation to another. If you announce to your family, I am going to sit in meditation for an hour every morning, hour every evening, and I want you all to be completely quiet, that'll have an effect. You might have a good intention, but realizing, well, if you've got a house full of teenagers, or you got a lot of responsibilities in the home, that's not going to work very easily. So that sense of contemplating, okay, what's going to work most effectively with the living situation I have, the space that I have. Oftentimes the early morning is best, because before everybody else gets up. So like we've been doing here, get up at 4 o'clock, meet at 5, you can get up even earlier, and before the world wakes up, then it's usually very quiet and everyone is still asleep, and you can get a good period of meditation before everyone starts to get busy with the day and making breakfast or getting active and going to work, going to school and whatnot. So if you do want to have a good length of time in the day and you are living with a family, then early morning, making space in the early morning is very sensible. In terms of walking meditation, if you have a garden, that's great. If you're living in an urban situation, in an apartment block or with no garden, or a house with no garden, then kind of make do with the best you can, and often just using a space inside the building, like a corridor or across a room, if you can, or if there's a park nearby or a place where you can go to, and just sort of making a point of going to a particular spot, like in a public park or a place by the river or something where you can walk, and be creative with respect to that. But as Ajahn Jiew was just saying, that the developing mindfulness in everyday life, so that rather than if you really can't find a place to do walking meditation conveniently in your home or around about, just make every walk that you do during the day, down the corridor at the office or along the pavement, through the car park, make that walking meditation. Just bring your attention into your feet, be aware of the act of walking, just use that as a framework, because that quality of sustaining mindfulness in everyday activity, whether you're washing dishes or walking down a corridor through the office block. All of that is, the Dhamma is always here and now, so that the process of bringing attention to the present, whatever way we can do that, is going to be helpful. But to the degree that we can make some time during each day for quiet sitting meditation, that's very helpful. Most people can find a corner of their apartment or their house where they can be quiet and be left alone. And early morning is often the best time for that. Nighttime, there's usually a lot more activity and noise in the world around us. But the early morning, they say the early morning is the time for the devas, and the evening is the time for the pretas, hungry ghosts. So early morning is the best time.
I think last year you were talking about mini meditation
and
micro.
Yeah. I mean, I usually talk about all those things later on, but I'm also along with that, maintaining of mindfulness in the flow of activity. Also, I like to promote what I call micro meditations, so that say when you're in your home and you want to make a cup of tea, you go into the kitchen, just stop and take 5 seconds before you turn the kettle on. Just be still. Or if you're getting into your car, just climb into the driver's seat, sit down, just wait for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds before you turn the key or push the button or say, Siri, drive me to work. Yeah. Or whatever way people get around nowadays. So that and in the course of the day, they're just finding times to just stop, be still. Coming into when you have a business meeting in the hospital or in the office or wherever you might be, just to, you got a meeting in the boardroom or something, just go 5 minutes early, sit down and just be still, just appreciate the space, the silence in the room before all the other people show up. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Don't have to do anything special. And it's if you use this kind of process of micro meditations, what you find is there's a lot more space in the day than you realized. Often we have this idea, I've got so much to do, there's so little time, busy. But everyone can afford an extra 5 seconds, 5 or 10 times a day. And if you can't, I like to say you're really in trouble. So that just stopping and being still. And it's interesting how long 5 seconds is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh.
กราบนมัสการเจ้าค่ะ First question from yesterday, didn't have a chance to ask. The books, your books, are already there at the reception desk, and I've read 3. So last night I didn't read any. So are we supposed to not read them? What would be your guidance with this retreat?
You can read them if you wish. So I oftentimes a retreat environment is the best time for reading Dhamma books. It depends a little bit on your intention. That's finding something to do. If you're reading the toothpaste tube and the ingredients of the herb tea packet, I'm just hungry for something. It's not really the Dhamma material is not really significant, but the quietness and the spaciousness and also the reflective environment can make reading Dhamma materials far more rich and helpful than in ordinary times. So I'm quite happy for people to be reading Dhamma books or to be taking notes. That I feel that's okay. Some people are very strict and say, no, don't read anything and don't, put all the notebooks away. But I feel it can be helpful to clarify one's thoughts and also an understanding. And then also with reading Dhamma books, there can be you're not in the normal everyday flow of activity. There's a spaciousness and a reflective, contemplative quality in the retreat environment that helps us to read things more deeply and more completely.
Okay.
So,
my question for today is about reincarnation. Anatta, there's no self, but there is chatni chatna. There's the individual that continues. That's the karma that catches up with the individual from one birth to death to the next birth and death. Could you please explain how it's non-self? Some people say it's tat rule, but still it's almost like self because it carries on.
Yeah, well, so you're not the first person to ask this question. Ever since the Buddha's time, people have been asking the same thing. So that it's the principle of anatta is more accurately not self rather than no self, which makes a difference. So that there's actually nowhere in the Pali Canon that the Buddha says there is no self. What he does say is the body is not self, feelings are not self, perceptions are not self, mental formations and discriminative consciousness are not self. But you can't find anywhere in the Pali Canon where the Buddha says there is no self. So what he's saying is that what we usually attach to as being the self, the body, the personality, and so on, that's not what is real. So the Chatna, Chatgon, Chatna, past lives, future lives, the simplest way of talking about it is that what is reborn are habits. And that one time when the Buddha was asked this, he responded by saying, well, if you consider yourself as a 1-year-old baby and yourself as an adult now, are you completely different or are you completely the same as that 1-year-old baby? And the person says, well, I'm neither completely different nor completely the same. There's a connection. The Buddha said, exactly. So the baby is not the same as the adult, but the adult couldn't be there unless the baby was there. So the events of the life of the baby will have an effect on the experience of the adult, and so that the what gets reborn is whatever the mind is attached to, what it loves, what it hates, what it fears, what is familiar to it. So that it's not an individual being or an entity that leaves one life and goes to another, because this was the sort of the principle of the Atman in Vedanta that the Buddha was countering, that there's this little bubble of pure self, the Atman, that goes from one life to another, one life, one body to another. And the Buddha was saying, no, that's not the way it works. There's a cause and effect relationship, but you can't say it's the same being and you can't say that it's completely different, that one life affects another. And so just as, there was a question relating to this yesterday or the day before, and particularly in the West, a lot of Western Buddhists don't like the idea of past lives or future lives. And also in this country, Ajahn Buddhadasa was very rigorous in speaking very, very little about past lives and future lives, and had a kind of anti-superstition campaign. So he would very, very rarely talk about it. but what he would talk about is saying that you can see rebirth happening moment by moment, day by day. And Luang Por Chah similarly would took that same kind of approach. That rebirth is not mysterious, it's not far away. You can see getting born into a feeling in your body, getting born into this taste of some food, getting born into a visual object that we see, a memory or an idea. The mind takes hold of that, gets born into it, and then the experience of having grasped, having been born into that, wanting to experience that flavor, wanting to get away from that feeling, wanting to be close to somebody or get away from somebody, in those everyday attachments and psychological births, you can see the whole process working very, very directly. And so both Luang Por Chah, Luang Por Buddha Tat would say it's not mysterious, it's not far away. You can see it happening, how it works right in front of your eyes every day. And so just as we can use the meditation to look at this body, look at the personality, look at our life story, and apply the insight into not self and say, well, yeah, it looks like a person, but this assemblage of parts come together and we say anik, we say Ajahn Amaro, and but it's an approximation, it's a convenient fiction, and the work of insight meditation is breaking the habit of seeing that I am an individual, this is me, and this is who and what I am, and instead to see, well, this is the appearance of things. These elements come together and we call it a person. We say, this is me, this is mine, this is my mind. But that's an approximation. It's a convenient fiction. And when the Buddha was asked, he had in a dialogue with Vacchagotta, Vacchagotta asked the Buddha, so when one life comes to an end, and before the next life has begun, what sustains a being between those two lives? And the Buddha said, well, it's like a forest fire. When there's a forest fire and the flame jumps from one tree to another, what sustains it is the air that sustains the fire. And what sustains a being from one life to the next is tanupadana, which literally means craving is the fuel. In that respect, upadana means both clinging and also fuel, like the burnable material. So tanupadana. So it's the danha, the craving and attachment. That's what sustains a being from one life to the next. But so that the simple answer is to say what gets reborn are habits. What your personality is like today, and the things that you were excited about today or regretting today, when you wake up tomorrow, you'll probably still feel like you're the same person, and you still tend to get excited about the same things and regret about the same things, because of the strength of habit. But the more that those likes and dislikes or regrets are known and fully understood, saying, well, that's just liking. It doesn't belong to a person. It's just a feeling of liking. It arises, it passes away. It's not me, it's not mine. It's not what I am. So in that moment, there's the tendency to be reborn is being restrained. There's the wisdom mind is the refuge. Like, oh, this is just liking. It's not me liking. It's not that is a good thing. It's just my mind saying, I like this. That's all. There's no thing absolutely there. So that in that moment, with respect to that particular object, then rebirth has stopped. So that if there's a development of insight around that particular liking or regret, I'm such a bad person, I shouldn't have done that, I'm such an idiot. So, well, no, this is the feeling of regret. That action is remembered, painful emotion arises. That's not self either. It's not me, it's not mine. That action happened. When it's remembered, there's a painful feeling. It's just, that's a memory, it's empty. That's a feeling, it's empty. It's not a person, doesn't belong to a person. So again, the wisdom is the refuge, and the causes for rebirth are being, say, restrained, so that then when you wake up the next day, rather than those same habits repeating themselves, the mind is looking at them in a different way. It doesn't take those as me and mine. So the process of enlightenment and ending rebirth on a physical level is like more of the above, you know. That with respect to everything the mind likes, dislikes, attaches to, takes to be who and what we are. And another example from the world of physics that I like to use, there's probably a few scientists in the room. So if you remember your high school physics classes about how waves work. So if you're standing on the seashore and you watch a wave coming in from the sea, it looks like a wall of water is coming in from the open sea. The wave comes to the shore and it breaks on the sand or on the pebbles, right? And it looks like this block of water is moving through space and arriving at the beach. It's not. The water that makes up the wave is actually moving in a kind of circular motion. And what is moving towards the beach is energy. So that that wave of energy is picking up different water molecules, and then it's a knock-on effect. It's a cumulative cause and effect process, so that the energy is moving from the open water to the beach, but the actual molecules of water are pretty much staying where they are. So a being is like that wave of energy coming from the open sea and breaking on the shore. That is like we're eating food, we're breathing air, we're drinking water, we're excreting. We're picking it like the wave picks up different water molecules and sheds them. But the wave of energy, if it's a big wave, then it stays big. It doesn't suddenly just reduce, or it doesn't suddenly expand. It has a consistency. Like, you know, we're pretty much the same personality today as we were yesterday. We're a little bit older. A few, you know, maybe a couple more gray hairs by the end of the retreat than they were at the beginning, or a couple of hairs have fallen out. Yeah, but pretty much the same. But the consistency of the form, my personality, my life, my memories, my ideas, is just like the waveform of the energy coming in to the beach. And so then that I feel is a good way of looking at a human life. It's just a waveform rippling through time and space, and from birth and childhood, and the wave has a particular shape. But if it's worked with if it's not got more energy contributing to it, energy of attachment, grasping, tanha, upadana, then what's contributing to the wave is getting less and less and less, and then the ending of rebirth is then no waves, just open water, the profound, immeasurable, unfathomable ocean of Dhamma. So it's not like there is a being who stops being reborn. The mind that is aware of beings coming and going has always been here. It's, as we were saying earlier, it's a timeless quality. It's not like there was a being who stopped being reborn. That the Buddha said, those who say I talk about the annihilation or the disappearance of an existent being, they misrepresent me. That's not what I say. So we appear to be individual beings, these waves rippling through time. That's the appearance. We've even got name tags, you know, naming the waves. But that the appearance of individuality and beingness is it's an appearance, it's a seeming. Anyone come?
อาตมานึกถึงตัวอย่างหนึ่งที่ใกล้เคียงกับที่ท่านอาจารย์อธิบายนะคือสมมุติว่าข้างหน้าเราเนี่ยมีเทียนอยู่เล่มหนึ่งนะเปลวเทียนนี่มันเกิดขึ้นจากอะไรเปลวเทียนมันคือปฏิกิริยานะที่มันมาจากตัวขี้ผึ้งกับไส้เทียนแล้วก็อะไรที่มันเป็นเชื้อไฟใช่ไหมมันก็สว่างอย่างเงี้ยนะแล้วสมมุติว่ามันเราจุดเทียนทิ้งไว้นะแล้วถึงเวลาเนี่ยเทียนนี้มันก็ต้องดับใช่ไหมทำไมเทียนมันดับนะเพราะว่ามันไม่เหลืออะไรที่จะทำให้เกิดปฏิกิริยาใช่ไหมนะทีนี้ถ้าสมมุติว่าก่อนที่เทียนเล่มนี้มันจะดับแล้วเอาอีกเทียนอีกเล่มหนึ่งมาต่อใช่ไหมเราก็จะได้เทียนเล่มใหม่ใช่ไหมแสงสว่างใหม่ใช่ไหมแล้วถามคำถามว่าไอ้แสงใหม่เนี่ยมันเป็นแสงเดิมหรือเป็นแสงใหม่มันเป็นของเก่าหรือมันเป็นของใหม่ถ้าเป็นของใหม่ล้วนๆแต่มันต่อแต่เดิมมันไม่มีนะมันต่อมาจากอันนี้นะแต่ถ้าบอกมันเป็นของใหม่ของเก่าทั้งหมดมันก็ต้องอาศัยตัวขี้ผึ้งจากเทียนใหม่นะเนี่ยกระบวนการอย่างเงี้ยนะถ้าสมมติจะมาอธิบายตรงนี้ว่าความเป็นอนิจจ์นะไม่ใช่บอดี้เนี่ยใช่ไหมเพราะร่างกายเฉยๆก็ทำอะไรไม่ได้คิดอะไรไม่ได้สร้างคำถามอย่างนี้ไม่ได้คิดซับซ้อนอะไรไม่ได้ในความเป็นอันนี้ก็คือปฏิกิริยาของขันธ์ที่ทำงานกันเนี่ยแล้วกลายเป็นสิ่งที่เรียกว่าเนี่ยเราก็ตั้งชื่อว่าโยมอนิจจ์ใช่ไหมแล้วพอไอ้ปฏิกิริยาของการที่ทำงานนี้มันสิ้นไปไอ้สิ่งที่มันต้องทิ้งไว้ในร่างกายนี้แน่นอนคือไอ้ตัวสังขารที่มันต้องทิ้งไว้เพราะว่าไม่ได้ใช้แล้วแต่มันจะมีอะไรสักอย่างหนึ่งที่ทำหน้าที่ที่ยังคงความเป็นอนิจจ์ที่ท่านอาจารย์บอกว่า habit เนี่ยใช่ไหมแล้วสมมติว่ามันมีเหตุก็คือว่ามีเทียนอีกเล่มหนึ่งมาต่อมีเหตุมีปัจจัยที่เอื้อทำให้ไปอาศัยไอ้ตัวขี้ผึ้งใหม่หรือรูปใหม่ที่จะเกิดขึ้นก็ฟอร์มขึ้นมาใหม่แล้วจะเรียกว่าอันนั้นยังคงเดิมหรือเป็นใหม่มันก็คล้ายกับไอ้ตัวอย่างของเรื่องเทียนที่ต่อกันคือใหม่ก็ไม่ใช่เก่าก็ไม่ใช่แต่มันมีความต่อเนื่องมีความเชื่อมโยงกันอยู่ก็ทำนองเดียวกับคลื่นอย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์พูดหรือไฟไฟป่า
I leave it to you. So it's anatta means not self rather than no self. So thank you for your good questions.